All right, I want to do a 9mm plus P plus test with several different 9mm plus P plus rounds and see how they compare, and also have a little bit of a discussion on plus P and plus P plus. So I did bring out one standard plus P round here, Winchester Defender, and the rest of these are plus P plus, and I want to see, is it really beneficial to go up to a plus P plus? Does it really matter? And I'm going to use my M&P pistol here for this test, and this is one thing to consider. You definitely want to have a pistol that's really designed to fire plus P plus. None of them will say it on it, but basically plus P plus is something that's meant to be fired through duty size handguns. You got SIGs, you got Berettas, like Beretta 92s, M&Ps, Glocks, stuff like that, because they're sturdy pistols. You should never fire plus P plus through like Taurus G2Cs, little pistols like that. I mean, I'd probably handle it, but yeah, it's going to put a lot of wear and tear in your gun. But basically, I get a lot of discussion and a lot of comments about plus P ammo, especially when I test ammo like versus different calibers, like 9mm versus 38 Special plus P. People are screaming about the fact that it's not fair when they really don't understand what they're talking about. Plus P doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot, and it means something different for every cartridge. Like 38 Special plus P, it means something different than 9mm plus P. Both of them are increasing the pressure, but generally with 9mm plus P, you don't necessarily get a lot of benefit from going up to a plus P, as where 38 Special you generally always do. And also on top of that, 9mm is always starting out at 35,000 PSI, and 9mm at 35,000 PSI, and 38 Special at 17,000. So that makes a difference. But what I'm going to focus on today is 9mm plus P plus. So when we look at 9mm, it's a 35,000 PSI cartridge. When we look at 9mm plus P, it is a 38,500 PSI cartridge. And plus P plus doesn't have a standard. All it means is that it's above plus P, which is 38,500 PSI. But when we look at cartridges, it's not like there's a specific standard like, oh, a plus P is exactly 38,500. No, plus P means that it is above 35,000. It could be 35,001 PSI tested. Well, that's a plus P. And it could be a 38,499, and that's still a plus P, but there's a significant difference between those cartridges. And the same thing for plus P plus. It could just simply mean that they tested it at 38,501 PSI. So it doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. And also with 9mm, what you're doing here to get up to a higher pressure is you're barely adding any more powder. That's why you don't necessarily get an advantage every time, because the case capacity is so small. It can take just a tenth of a grain to go from plus P to plus P plus. As we're 38 Special to go up from just like standard pressure to plus P, you're often talking a full grain of powder, which that's why it gets better performance. But anyways, with 9mm plus P, generally what you're looking at, or plus P plus, is that when you go real light with cartridges, they tend to do a lot better because you're increasing the case capacity. The bullet's lighter, it's shorter, therefore you have more case capacity. But anyways, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to ballistic gel test 4 different rounds here, and I'm not going to use denim, I'm not going to use MDF, I'm just going to go into straight clear ballistics. I'm going to try to get a shot over the chronograph with each of these to see what kind of actual velocity we're getting. If not, I have averaged these in the past through this pistol, so if I don't get a read, I can tell you what I got before. But we're going to go with a round of each of these. So we have our 9mm plus P Winchester Defender. That's kind of going to be our control round there. Then we're going to move up to actually Winchester plus P plus, which is kind of interesting because Winchester is a SAMI member company, but under SAMI specification there is no plus P plus, so it is interesting. This is a 127 grain T series, which is very similar to our Winchester Defender bonded jacketed hollow point, which is 124 grain. Then I'm going to try our Buffalo Bore 147 grain jacketed hollow point plus P plus, and then the most notorious round out there in 9mm, it's been that way for a while, it's been our Buffalo Bore 115 grain. And this is the round that's rated at 1,400 feet per second, 500 foot-pounds. And people often quote that round when they talk about, comparing it to 357 Magnum. So I'll shut up, we'll start shooting, see what we get for our ballistic performance comparing all of these. And as you might see, I got a block of wood up there just because with my chronograph here, I don't want the gel block jumping up, falling down on my chronograph. So first up, we have our Winchester Defender. This is just our standard 1 plus P, 1 plus. And if I don't get a reading with this, my averages in the past were 13, 14 feet per second, 475 foot-pounds energy out of this gun. So that is a pretty good round that I got in the past. Now let's see what we get in our gel block, and hopefully we'll get a velocity read here. Wow. 1121 feet per second. So that's telling me that's not very consistent compared to when I averaged it, and I believe it was in the springtime. So yeah, interesting. But that's somewhat typical to what you might sometimes see with plus Ps, but generally in a shorter barrel. Let's try something else. All right, moving on to our first plus P plus, we have our Winchester T-Series 127 grain plus P plus. If I don't get a read on this, in the past I got 1301 average for feet per second, 477 foot-pounds. So not a lot different than my previous energy and velocity compared to what I got for the Defender. So let's see what we get with our T-Series. 1293 feet per second. So, you know, not really that fast compared to a lot of cartridges that are not plus P plus. Let's move on to something else. All right, and before I move on to something else, I just want to show, you know, the penetration we got here. It looks like the plus P plus had slightly more damage in that gel. Of course it should. It's more powerful. But what we got with our plus P round, we got about 16 inches of penetration. Sometimes this widescreen angle skews what my finger looks like it's lining up with, but what I say is actually very correct. And what we're looking at here with our plus P plus is we got about 17 3/4 inches. So that's not over penetrating at all. So let me move on to something else. All right, I wanted to show the Defender and the T-Series, how they are basically the same bullet. Our T-Series, though, is a 127 grain. Our Defender is a 124 grain. And I think what's going on here, I wrote down thin jacket. Our T-Series has a thinner jacket than our Defender. And because lead is heavier than copper, I'm guessing that that thinner jacket allows for a little bit more lead versus our Defender. Make it that 3 grains heavier. So I think that's the difference going on there with those two. Buffalo Bore 147 plus P plus. In the past I got 1147 feet per second average. Let's see what we get today. $11.32, so we're staying on a very consistent with my average I got in the past, and I believe it was probably in the summer, so that's good that we're staying consistent with our more expensive high-end ammo. All right, last up we have our Buffalo Bore 9mm plus P plus 115 grain. This was a beast of a round when I choreographed it in the past. 1489 feet per second, 566 foot-pounds energy. That lines up with your typical energy number for a 4-inch barrel, duty size, 357 mag. So let's see how close I get to that 1489 feet per second now. And it's actually rated at 1400. So let's see what we get. $14.53, so just a little bit lower velocity than what we saw in the past. So let's go take a look at those two now. And we're seeing something completely different here. With our 147 grain, that is to be expected what we got. You know, heavier bullets will retain more momentum. And a lot of people get this misconception that when people say momentum, like generally talking about 45 ACP, they mean knockdown power, momentum, knock them down. That's not what it means. Momentum means that when it's going through air or water or ballistics gel or flesh, it's going to keep trucking along and be less, like more resistant to slowing down. So this is pretty typical of what we might see with something like this. So the 147 grain, we're at about 18 and a half inches. Now with our 115 grain, we got a whole bunch of fragmentation, massive energy dump. What you might expect to see out of something like a 357 Magnum, and about 11 and a half inches. That's pretty identical to the Remington HTP 125 grain 357 Magnum, where it just busts up and it dumps that energy. Sure, it's below our 12-inch minimum we want to see, but if you were to hit an attacker square with that, it's going to basically do the same thing as a 357 Magnum. So we can definitely see here that when we look at plus P plus, we really want to look at the lighter bullets, because that's what's going to do really that damage that you're looking for, that extra power that you're looking for. So because I really love this pistol, this has been one of my favorite pistols. It's really what has changed my mind about semi-automatics, because it's such a good quality pistol and it shoots really well for me. And because of that, I'm going to back up. I got some extra rounds here. I'm going to shoot from 75 yards, which for a pistol like this is not ridiculous at all, because it shoots so well. And I'll see if I can get for accuracy on my steel target. All right, 75 yards from the target up there. First up, I have one round of that Winchester Defender 124 grain in this magazine, and behind that is a few rounds of the 147 grain Buffalo Bore plus P plus. So let's see if I can hit that target 75 yards with our 124 grain. All right, perfect point of impact and aim where I aimed. Now we have some 147 grain Buffalo Bore. Alright, so not particularly good with that ammo. I feel like they may be shooting kind of high, and I was probably going over the target. So next up I have some of these T-Series 127 grain plus P plus. By the way, I definitely did notice a difference in recoil with the 147 grain. Just kind of a muzzle jump, kind of felt like shooting a 45 or something. Not too bad, but let's see what we get with our T-Series here. I think I'm shooting a little bit high, plus I can barely see the target, so I'll lower my glasses a little. Definitely not my best work. I'm a little overconfident today. It's kind of warm out, so I was thinking it would be pretty easy to hit these. But for whatever reason, struggling a little bit here. I got 3 more rounds of those T-Series. And let's see if I can do a little better. It looks like I may be shooting a little bit to the left. I started aiming a little bit to the right there. So let me load up some of those Buffalo Bore That's my last rounds to shoot. Here's the Buffalo Bore 115 grain, kind of the most notorious rounds out there. I only have a few of these, but they're moving at about 1450 feet per second, which is very, very fast velocity. So considering that they should not be shooting high whatsoever, if I aim center, they should hit center. So let's see what I can get with these. Alright, so I did miss one, but I felt a little bit more confident with those. And those sounded like 357 Magnum, honestly. The recoil was pretty similar to everything else. It's a little bit snappier. So what I'm seeing here is definitely, I dropped my pistol. Definitely, what we're seeing here is with our 115 grain plus P+, we are having probably the best performance that there is. We're impacting like a 357 Magnum, and we are getting a lot of damage, a lot of just impact force. Overall, it seemed to shoot the best for me at distance. It just seems like a pretty good cartridge. Now when we go into the heavier bullets, I'm not really sure you're really gaining anything by going to a plus P+. And using this 5-inch pistol was, it's kind of important that I did that, because generally you're going to get the best possible increase in a longer barrel. And what we were seeing is, you know, with some of it, you know, compared to the plus P round I brought out, yeah, it seems better, but I've tested regular single plus rounds, just plus P 124 grains, that have very easily hit 1300 feet per second. So what I'm seeing with the plus P+ isn't that significant. It doesn't really seem to mean a whole lot. So my whole point to this video is that with some rounds of plus P+, you definitely can get a huge increase. But generally what I've seen is it needs to be Buffalo Bore or Underwood. They're really pushing those boundaries of a good cartridge. But with something like that, you want to use something like this. You don't want to go put it in a Diamondback pistol and shoot it. That would be a bad day for you. But light bullets, you can get up there, but heavier bullets, just not seeing really the point of it. So that's what you get today with this test. So as always, comment, share, and like, and thanks for watching.